So I would say, honestly, having the mindset of always being a student. So just to get a little bit more granular and add context, once I was actually able to automate my almost 80-hour work week down to 15 hours, I immediately started just writing everything down and creating my own playbooks and talking about a lot of what I was doing and sharing it with the organization. And naturally, that put me into a position very quickly where the whole original problem was I didn't have the luxury of time and I needed to automate the busy work to get the time back. And what I realized was once I did that, I became pretty vital to the organization's success in also doing that. But what it did was it took the automated work week in my 15-hour work week back up, right, to like over capacity because I was teaching everyone else how to use these systems and processes and tools on top of having a 9 to 5. And I wasn't getting compensated for it. So I solved a problem with the tools, but then created a new problem with those same tools. And that was really the perspective shift of what am I doing?
The Intelligence Forge podcast is sponsored by Permasize AI Forge. The Intelligence Forge podcast is sponsored by Permasize AI Forge. At Permasize AI Forge, we know you're ambitious, but are manual tasks like admin, lead generation, nurturing, and onboarding holding you back from truly scaling your business? Imagine saving dozens of hours every week, freeing you to deepen client relationships and execute high-impact strategy. Our clients aren't just imagining it. They're saving countless hours per week and doubling their revenue within months. We custom-build AI automation systems that eliminate the grind. From effortless lead generation and nurturing to seamless onboarding, we give you back the most valuable resource, your time, so you can focus on building those vital human connections and driving strategic growth. Stop letting repetitive tasks limit your potential. It's time to build a business that works for you, not the other way around. Ready to unlock your true scaling power? Visit PermasizeAIForge.com and book your free AI audit call today to discover how you can save time and double your revenue. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the Intelligence Forge YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new episode.
From 90 million to 150 million in 3 months. Building an AI workforce that actually drives revenue. Welcome to the Intelligence Forge, where we explore how technology and intelligence come together to transform businesses. I am thrilled today to have Ashley Gross with us. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's a pleasure. Okay, let's start into it. I'm not here to start by you introducing yourself to our audience. Tell us about AI Workforce Alliance, your role, and what you're building there in your own words.
Sure. So, hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Gross. I am, in order priority, a mom, a wife, and yes, a business owner to 2 businesses. I'm the CPO and founder of AI Workforce Alliance and AI Workforce Academy. Both of those companies really just started at the root of a problem that I solved for using AI. So, this all started with me just being a mom back in 2020 and not getting maternity leave and being very rudely awoken to what that looks like and not having a lot of time to prepare for being a new mom and also maintaining a 9 to 5. So I turned to AI tools. That paid off because in order to learn how to use AI tools, you have to be very humble and direct with your time and intention, which allowed me to see what tasks were consuming my almost 80-hour work week and what tasks I really didn't need to be spending a ton of time on because they were taking away from my real superpowers, which were strategy and problem solving and creativity. And so that just kind of snowballed into this wonderful experience of learning and being a student and then immediately turning around and teaching the enterprise that I worked for and other organizations exactly how to do what I was doing using my exact same playbooks, prompts, formats. And as a result, I have 2 companies now. One teaches the fundamental prospects of how to actually automate your work weeks and build systems. And then the other one allows us to come into an enterprise and actually do a lot of the heavy automating for the companies. It just kind of depends on what an organization's bandwidth is and where the maturity is with AI.
Fantastic. Wow, what a journey. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm very interested in knowing what is actually happening right now in your organization. The most exciting things that is happening at AI Workforce Alliance right now. Any recent win, success story that particularly energizes you?
Yes, I would say the most exciting thing that energizes me as a solo founder, oftentimes my successes when I'm looking back happened a while ago. I just didn't have time to come up and look up. And so, tax season, I'm looking at the numbers for the first time from last year, and I'm actually seeing the margins of growth and how much we were able to accomplish. Everyone always says to get to your first million, it's incredibly hard. And then from there, it gets a little bit easier. But getting to that first 1 million is a huge monumental win and something I'm super proud of, especially as a bootstrap solo founder. It's been a very interesting and exciting time, and not only obviously to reach that milestone, but with it elevating the way that I think about running businesses and just where I'm at right now, where I wasn't, a year, 2 years ago.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you so much. I love success story, but thank you so much for sharing that. But before we dive deeper, I'm very curious. I mean, I do this to everyone, so it's your turn. Come on, your journey. How did you get started? I know you spoke about bootstrap just now, but I think our audience would like you to maybe give us a summary of how you started your AI company. What kind of funding, did you have available? Your first capital, if you have to put it that way. I forward to today and you compare where you start from and where you are today. How do you, compare both together? It's good to know where you start from. It's good to know where you are today. But our people, I mean, our audience will be able to put one and two together to say, well, it's quite a journey, and if you can do it, they can also do it.
Sure. So I would say, honestly, having the mindset of always being a student. So just to get a little bit more granular and add context, once I was actually able to automate my almost 80-hour work week down to 15 hours, I immediately started just writing everything down and creating my own playbooks and talking about a lot of what I was doing and sharing it with the organization. And naturally, that put me into a position very quickly where the whole original problem was I didn't have the luxury of time and I needed to automate the busy work to get the time back. And what I realized was once I did that, I became pretty vital to the organization's success and also doing that. But what it did was it took the automated work week and my 15-hour work week back up, right, to like over capacity because I was teaching everyone else how to use these systems and processes and tools on top of having a 9 to 5. And I wasn't getting compensated for it. So I solved a problem with the tools, but then created a new problem with those same tools. And that was really the perspective shift of what am I doing? Like, I just spent so much time to invest in these tools to save myself time so that I could be a mom and have a career. And now I'm doing two jobs for the price of one because I'm trying to teach everyone else how to do this. And it's eating up my time. Like, this is not why we started off on this journey. But I'll say for anyone listening, that wasn't like a quick, very self aware process that happened in my head. It was a year and a half into coming back up to being over 40 hours, per week, doing two jobs at the same time, where I kind of had this like, I called it my come to Jesus moment where I was like, what are we doing? Well, what's happening here? And that shift was really the wake up call of, okay, there's value here. While this is the Wild West and we don't necessarily know what's going to happen in this industry, there's substance here. And if I'm being pulled in these different directions to go educate, and I myself just became a learner of these systems 2 years ago, this is a business. There's something here. And I didn't have the loan I didn't want to get. I didn't want to raise because I didn't want to lose the control. I think a lot of it was, as a founder, I think a lot of people would agree, you don't know what you're doing. You're just experimenting and figuring it out along the way and having intention and purpose and belief in what you're doing and that it's needed. And that's really how this started. It was just more so, how do I, while I have this 9 to 5, start creating a business plan that alleviates and eventually removes me from that 9 to 5 that's sustainable, that doesn't feel scary, that's not like, the memes and the posts where it's like, just jump, just do it. Because like, that's not realistic when you're a new mom and you're the primary breadwinner. Like, that's not something that comes naturally. So I just laid out a plan of how am I going to phase myself out of my 9 to 5 and feel really good about my business value proposition. And when I do leave that 9 to 5, I'm not going to be breaking even. I'm going to be making more than I did at the 9 to 5. And so I'm happy to get into the breakdown of how that came about. That it was just as simple as writing it down on paper and then having a really strong and consistent mindset of this is where we're going and this is what we're doing and we're going to figure it out.
Wow, that's beautiful. I think the last question I was going to ask you, I think I'm going to use that to do a follow-up on this question. I was going to ask you about some of the tools you use, but maybe break it down for us because I personally, you want some certain thing you say, but I don't really, get the gist. You are working in an organization and then you are automating one work by yourself, and now we are teaching your colleague how break that down exactly in a very simple, what exactly are you doing? What did you do? How did you do? Just for you to understand.
Of course. So before, when I was looking at my work week, there's standard 40 hours in a work week. As soon as I was told I wasn't going to have a maternity leave, that was the first time in my whole entire career I was actually paying attention to how long I was working. Before that, my mindset was very much like you don't clock out until the job's done. And so I wasn't even working a standard 40-hour work week. I was truly working as many hours as it took, which averaged about 80 a week, just to get the job done and feel really good about it. I don't do anything halfway. So if I'm going to work for myself, for anyone, I'm going to over deliver. That's just how I operate. And so I started by downloading a free Google Chrome extension called Toggle. And using Toggle, you can actually track what tasks you're doing. You can label them, you can put them in categories. You can very easily time how long a task is taking you. And so when I started doing that exercise, I was so shocked at where my time was going because that was the first time again that I had ever paid attention to it. And when I looked at the amount of time that it was taking me to complete some of these tasks, and I looked at like what those tasks were, the majority of those tasks that were eating up 80 hours of my week were sending emails, saying the same thing to 10, 15, 20 coworkers in different ways and in different phrases, pointing people to where they needed to find information in the organizations, being like the internal Wikipedia wizard, right? They were looking at data that existed in systems that are supposed to already be pretty good and be processed and clean, and they weren't. That was a lot of my time. And so when I used Toggle, I became aware of where that time was going. And so from there, I just started tracking what those tasks look like and started looking at AI tools that were built and marketed to solve those problems. And so one of the first AI tools I started using is Jasper AI. It was built for marketers by marketers. The whole conception of Jasper was you can upload your brand guidelines and your communication style, and it will draft emails from you. You can use the extension so you can plug it directly into your inbox, or you can create material there internally in Jasper and replicate it in different places. And so the purposes of writing emails, creating process documentation, onboarding employees, pointing people to where things needed to be, I just ultimately started to repurpose the information I was already putting out once into different ways and formats and verbiage that I was being asked to multiple times a week. That right there, I would say, solved 60% of the automation fatigue that I was feeling. And then from there, you started to get a little bit more sophisticated and in depth about the other problems.
Wow, fantastic. I mean, this is a valuable lesson. I believe our audience definitely will benefit from. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's move on to the magic wand question. Everyone gets the answer. It's your turn. So if you have a magic wand and you could instantly improve one thing about AI workforce alliance approaching, whether it's been client vetting, content creation, anything else, what will it be and why?
I could improve one aspect of AI Workforce Alliance. What would it be? Honestly, operations wise, we're pretty lean. I really like the way that I've hired and I've systemized. I think it's incredibly different than what your average workplace looks like in the best ways possible. So I wouldn't change anything operationally. I believe if I could wave a magic wand, I would probably make myself an even better communicator because I think that an organization's success largely depends on their leader. And I know that being a solo founder is not necessarily making my communication skills sharp. Oftentimes my employees have very little bits and bursts of me, which is great because they have full autonomy and I have a lot of trust, so it works. But I would say if I can wave a magic wand, probably the ability to be able to slow down and articulate my thoughts a little bit better, work on my communication skills, things that comes with experience. But if I had to have a magic wand, I would want them right now because you can do that with magic wands.
Wow, and I also, well, which is that command? So You get it? All right. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right. Let's move on. I know a very big, that's what you do on a mission and, getting a lot of hours cut off. But I'd like to ask you, how many of your old tasks it's locked and automated currently? So I'm asking you in the opposite way I will have asked a normal business owner. But how many of them are what that you think, well, I'm not ready for this, or because I just want this human touch in it? Then I'm going to ask you about your LinkedIn strategy in terms of putting content. Have you done that already? Or you think, well, that's not something that should be done. So what's your thought on those two questions?
Okay, so the first question was what all in terms of operations is automated in my own business today, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's automated today is pretty much every single task that needs to be done more than twice a day. And so what I mean by that is if we're looking at an organization chart, the way that you would think about full-time hires, part-time hires, freelancers, and contractors, I look at it the same exact way, but I also add AI agents to that org chart. So anytime there is a system or a process like making sure that all of our clients are paying us and running audits on that, looking at the contracts for the past year and making sure we don't need to update the verbiage. Anytime there is a process that needs to be repeated that is not adding value by having a human there because they're not able to perform skills that are uniquely human in a human way, that I have an automation for. I basically look at it as any single part of my business where it is not based on strategy, creativity, the human connection, trust. There's an agent there. I would much rather have my humans be bringing the strategy in and experimenting and adding to the creativity and trying new things. I think that that's why we've been so successful is I don't hire third-party thinkers. I don't want to hire someone who's just going to use ChatGPT every single day on their job. I have agents for that, right? But I do want people that are going to come in and they're going to look at processes that already exist and are already fine-tuned and not be coming into a mess, because I don't think that that's really normal in this day and age to go into an organization and not have a pile of things that need done immediately. So that's kind of my perspective on that is I want people that get onboarded and come into the company to know that it's already in a good place. So we really are adding you in to enhance this. There's nothing you need to fix. There's nothing that's broken. We want you and your experience and your ideas. And that's really the emphasis that I put on the human connection.
Okay. And what about your LinkedIn?
So on my LinkedIn, nothing's automated. So fun fact about me, I I am very risk averse when it comes to being a stickler for following rules. So if I know there's a rule that shouldn't be broken, once I know I get like anxiety if I even think that I'm breaking a rule. And so a lot of people don't read LinkedIn's privacy policies, but in their privacy policy, it's very black and white. It says if you use any automation tools, your account can be shut down. And since I've grown both my businesses and my personal brand on LinkedIn, being shut down for 3 days would be a huge loss for our revenue. So I'm just not willing to take that risk. I know that there's tools out there and there are people out there doing it. It's just for me, I looked at it. I know you're not supposed to, so I'm not going to do it. That's just my philosophy.
All right. Also, I'm just clear. I mean, what I was asking was in area of your content creation itself, because definitely LinkedIn is just one of the platforms you could post. But I'm not looking at the creation of your content. Yes, of course, I agree with you. If you use the model of automation or any automation on LinkedIn, definitely. Like somebody was joking yesterday, he said, the reason why you're asking you not to is because they want you to advertise. Because if you do anything with automation, they didn't need to advertise. But if you did manually, there's going to take you longer time. So they want you to come and, well, I don't know if that is true, but anyway, that's just. But I think I'm just asking in regards to creation of your content. A lot of business owners find it difficult to stay consistent, creating content every day and don't still posting it. So I just want to know, in your own case, is that something we've been able to overcome, or you still want that element of human touch in every content that you create and that you put out there?
So both answers are true. I want the human element to be in every single thing that I'm writing and posting. For me, I enjoy writing. I enjoy the creativity. I enjoy being able to create the story and give pieces and parts of it to my audience at a certain time. I like having that control because it's fun to see how my story has impacted other people and how it's made me relatable and more approachable. And so I like that aspect of it. The parts that I use AI for are really to make my processes better. So I have a creative process that I have not changed since I don't even know. Honestly, I might not have ever even changed it. My whole entire marketing career, I've always been a visual and I've always been I have to see and talk and ideate before anything good actually hits the paper. And so for me, what my processes always look like, whether I'm preparing for a presentation or a sales pitch or a speaking slot or even LinkedIn, is I will walk. I will go on walks with my son every single day. I'm consistent with it. And I will take out my voice memo app on my iPhone and I'll just record something because I do not get creative sitting at this capacity. I'm taking call after call. Like, this is not it. And so I got to get out of this. And for me, when I'm walking, that's what really starts to like click. And I think of things and patterns and trends, and I'll just start talking to my voice memo. And so what I really like to use AI for is I'll take that voice memo every single week, sometimes every few days, depending on how much talking I do. And I will throw it into a tool like Descript. And I'll tell the script to break it up into 6 to 8 stories. And the theme is going to be consistently X and the audience is consistently Y. Take my words and my thoughts, break it up into sections for these audiences and these themes, and then put it in a framework. Because I am not a framework thinker. I'm kind of like a mad scientist in a way where I have this idea and this idea. And so I like to use AI to consolidate and framework my creativity so that it lands better. I just find that that's my sweet spot.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for clarifying that. I love it. How am I? Now, let's dive into something I found absolutely fascinating. You mentioned in your profile that within 3 months of rolling out an AI solution at your previous organization, you surpassed a 90 million annual sales pipeline goal and reach 150 million. That's 25 million increase in just 3 months. Now, looking back to that moment, what was the situation when you came in? What specific AI strategy did you implement to drive that kind of result?
So first I would say this happened a year and a half into me having this role. So at this time, I was already spending a year and a half telling people and sharing in Slack messages and having video calls with employees on like how I was using AI. So I was pretty vocal about what I was doing and building up that trust and showcasing it before this happened. And I say that because I think it's important. I've seen lots of adoption fail in organizations because it's leaning on one person. And I think that it was instrumental for me to find that hive group at that organization of people that were interested in AI, even though we didn't have necessarily a strategy at that point in time. And so in this Slack group, if you can imagine, there's, anywhere from 5 to 9 different employees from every single department in there. And we're sharing updates and features that just launched and cool ways we're using AI. Okay. And so I was looking at this Slack thread, and sitting in marketing, I think that you have a little bit more of a pain point when it comes to attribution and sales targets, other than obviously sales. And so as I was sitting here looking at this Slack thread, I was also simultaneously getting pinged about how, we had a marketing leadership call with the sales leadership team to talk about attribution because, the latest marketing event only brought in X amount of MQLs and none of them were SQLs. And I was like, how can we have in the same exact channel and the same exact place this much innovation and forward thinking happening, but then this outdated concept and friction about attribution? Like, this just can't happen in the same place. And so I started to kind of reverse architect everything that I was seeing in the use cases I already knew some of the teams were working on and excited about. And I just looked at marketing, sales, and product because I was taking part in a lot of those weekly calls.
Okay.
And when I looked at where I thought a lot of AI could help, it was making it clear and concise and unbiased of where our data lived, who owned it, and how often it was getting updated. I just started there because we had a CRM, we had various tech, right? Like everyone else does. So I just started there. And that was my objective was I'm going to use AI to get an unbiased report of what's actually going on between marketing and sales so that there's no friction, there's no battle about like who owns what data and if it's accurate. And so I was able to actually do that. I used a few different tools, but the one that I really doubled down on at the time was Salesforce Einstein. And I was able to see that first, a lot of the time that the marketing and sales data and analytics team were focusing on was creating these custom reports and dashboards, because they weren't even in a self-serve capacity for everyone else to be able to just like tap into the tool and look it up and see what's going on. And so immediately I knew that like our top people that were super close to the data were already bogged down trying to create these reports. And their main worry was, we don't want to create a bad report where somebody disagrees with our data because that's going to make us look bad. Like that was their mindset. So once I was able to show that AI could generate a clean report, a clean dashboard, and solve the data folks on both sides of time, at that point, we had already found a couple different opportunities in the pipeline that had stalled that we weren't able to talk about or even bring up because we couldn't get past this attribution discussion. That right there was 5 million uncovered in converted pipeline because we were able to see the sales cycles and why they were stalling. And so from there, it was just kind of like another layer, right? So from there, I was like, okay, we found some pipeline issues. Let's figure out why these events that we're putting on are only bringing in marketing qualified leads, that those leads aren't skills. Because why would we waste all of our time on leads if we know they're not going to convert? That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
We ended up being able to see that our events were actually being targeted and used in paid ads to attract those folks to our events, but they weren't our audience. I started using ChatGPT and I started creating paid ads headlines and having 10 different variations of those. And we tried those in different places, and we created a threshold for 10 different ads in 3 different places to basically have a very short timeline. And if they weren't performing in that timeline, we would switch them out with a different variant. So just the ability to like expedite experimentation and have a process for doing so, that right there fixed the attribution problem partially because we were able to start attracting the people that we needed to in order to make sales happy, in order to get those sales qualified leads on. And I just started I started going from there and kind of working my way up because everybody knows there's organizations that have friction points between marketing and sales. And like, that's nothing new. We're all kind of used to that to a certain degree, but everybody is so bubbled up with friction that they can't start to look at this as like onion layers and get to the root of the problem and just remove one thing at a time. Because by the time it bubbles up, then it's kind of a little bit scary. And it's like, okay, well, is anyone going to have a job if we don't report the lead? And there's that fear and pressure. So that's really the approach that I took. And then to finalize where that 25 million came from, product. Product is supposed to marry marketing and sales. So if product is using outdated information and they are using misaligned personas in order to gauge where their next product feature should be, they're not looking at the full piece of the puzzle. And so then what happens is they start going to certain folks in sales and certain folks in marketing and getting biased feedback from the people that have usually been there the longest on what direction they think the product should go, instead of looking at the data, putting out surveys, asking clients that are coming on and signing on, what did they find exactly? What feature made them sign? Like getting that information while it's juicy and before they even sign like a contract and an NDA, getting those fresh insights so that we don't have to wait for a whole entire life cycle to pass before we get customer success story. And then those people forgot why they signed us in the first place.
Wow, fantastic. Permit me to ask you, this is not your main job. You both pick interest. Am I correct in saying that?
This is not my main job.
Yeah, in terms of you finding both solutions for the sales and marketing, that's not the reason why you were employed. But you just saw an opportunity and you feel like, oh, I can do this, I can do that, and then you got it right. Am I correct in saying that? Wow. Did you get any money, any prize for that?
I got a nice bonus, but I'll be totally honest, by the time I left, I think I had already made the bonus amount. And so it was very validating to me because a lot of the times I just didn't think that anybody was really paying attention. And I tried to expand my reach and try to solve other people's problems. And I think like the bigger the organization, the harder it is to get that kind of visibility. So I did get a little bonus, but I will say it was a struggle. It was a struggle. It felt very much like I had 2 jobs.
I guess the reason why you eventually start your own company, I think that justifies it. Because if you were able to do something and you could fish out 25 million for a company, I don't think they will put 10% of that as bonus. So imagine getting that for ourselves.
But I will say putting in that legwork made me a lot more confident in my starting my own company. So it did pay off. It was absolutely for something. And I'm happy that I had to go through that process because I have had no imposter syndrome since becoming a founder. I very much felt like I belong here. I made a seat at the table for myself because I felt like I'm ready. So that's been rewarding, just to feel very in my abilities and to own that. And that came through experience.
I agree with you. Perfectly agree with you. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right. You quoted something called AI impact alignment trademark. That's a process. For business owners listening who might not be familiar with this, can you break it down what that process actually looks like and how it ensures AI projects support business goal rather than just being shiny technical requirement?
Yes. So the AI impact alignment is a framework, and it's a part of our program. It's the core principle framework of our program, which just says, listen, we know that right now, if you were to go look up automation and agent training, it's going to be pretty technical. We understand that there's a need in the market right now for business users who are maintaining, creating, systemizing processes every single day to be able to also build agents and automations without having a coding or engineering background, right? And so the AI impact alignment is a 3-month builder program process where we take anywhere from 6 to 10 business users in an organization. And the only thing those business users have to have in common is that they are all surrounded by a common goal, a common friction point that they want to solve for. When we take those business users, and within 3 months, we have them build an automation and agent that actually goes towards solving that problem. So we're doing a few different things in this process. First, we're not consulting, we're not courses. It's hands-on implementation training. So it's 2 courses a month that you're essentially taking with live hours where we're co-building agents and automations together. You have office hours with me. You have actual builds and documentation that you have to create and show and validate. And you're doing all of this, but you're also doing this in a way that you're internally using your own tech stack that the company offers. And the tools you're using in the agent or automation that you're building is solving that problem that that core group of business users needed to solve anyways. And so what this looks like is perhaps it's marketing, sales, and product. And they really want to make sure that the marketing CRM is talking to Salesforce. So every time somebody ends a call, whether it's a Zoom or a Google Meet or a phone call, that information is already getting logged into not only the marketing CRM, but the sales CRM, and it's accurate. So they don't have to do anything manual. They don't have to rely on anything manual where they forget to upload it and update the information, and then it leads to a problem later on. Great use case, right? Very clear business objectives and goals. So we would help them build that automation first that connects their CRMs, and that they would do in the first month. And then months 2 and 3, they would actually be adding in the agentic components that make sure that not only is the marketing CRM and the sales CRM connected, but agentically it's learning that after you put a phone down, that information is going to flow both into the CRMs, but then maybe also it's going to send you an email reminder to talk to the engineer and have them provide information to that prospect within 24 hours because they asked specifically for a diagram or a competitive one-pager to make that business case for them. And that can make or break the deal. And that is very time sensitive, right? So that's something that you would want to get a reminder for. Again, you wouldn't want to rely on your brain when you're trying to do these sales calls every single day, or when you're in marketing and you're constantly pivoting and being pulled in different directions. So that's really the AI impact alignment. It's a framework that works for every organization centered around enabling business users to actually build agents and automations to solve real business problems.
Wow, that's really beautiful. But I want to understand when you say that you build everything together with the staff. So how this is really realistic. So for somebody probably installs an accountant and then you want them to build an AI agent, how does that work?
Yep. So what their tech stack looks like is questions that we go over in that first discovery call. So if they tell me that they are pretty Microsoft heavy, so their whole team is relying on Microsoft tech stack and then some finance schools in there. What I would do is during the first 30 days, they would actually get access to my Microsoft environment, and they would be co-building that automation with me during those live lectures and doing a little bit of like pre-homework in between in my environment. Simultaneously, what's happening is I'm talking to their IT teams and their privacy teams and saying, here's access to my environment. Here is what they're building right now. When can we migrate this into an environment? It can be a developer environment. It can live where you want it to live, and you can control the ownership of it and the IT rights to it. But when can we migrate this over so that what they're building can actually be used in your own system. And that's the same exact thing that we do until the IT teams are ready to allow that agentic capability. But it's very much a trust building exercise where we're not hindering adoption and innovation. They're building. We just start in my environment if the client wants, if they are more risk averse, or we'll just build in a developer environment within their own ecosystem. That way they don't have to have all of their personal and all their professional, because honestly, this is professional. Like, you should be getting paid, and this should be during the company hours that you're doing these because it benefits them as well.
All right, that's cool. Something I'll find, it's going to be a follow-up, but it's in no question entirely, but you could join, what I'm trying to get out of it. Can you share some specific challenge you face while we try to implement AI strategy? I imagine there are some resistance sometimes, blowback that probably some of the employees don't want to. What was it and how were you able to overcome it? So in the instance, whereby you tell somebody to go be something with you, I don't know, tomorrow, it's not my job, I'm not in job for. How do you pass your on to overcome some of these challenges? If there's any other challenges specifically that you want to share?
Yes. So I take a very crawl, walk, run approach to this. So the AI impact alignment framework, the people that participate in that program are chosen by leadership, and they're chosen by leadership with the credentials of they are excited about AI. They have a good understanding of the process that's part of the problem, and they already have access to the tools. They're causing some of those friction points. So they're not brand new to the issues. They're not people that have never seen, tech tools miscommunicating. They're very close to the process. They're not technical at all. They're business users, but they understand the problem, and they've at least tried to solve it without AI, and they have an idea of like what could be fixed, what could be enhanced, and they're excited about how to use AI to amplify the time to solution. So like that's really those business users and the credentials it takes. So I don't have to pull teeth necessarily to get them to be motivated. Like, they're already motivated. This is a privilege to be able to learn how to build these agents and maintain them in your own organization. I think overall, the issues that I would say I consistently sometimes see in organizations are a lack of change management conversations happening. You can't assume that everyone is thinking the same things whenever you're solving their problems. And so when I'm building agents and automations, I'm solving some of the wildest, most painful problems the organization has. And so you would think that hypothetically everyone would be so excited. But we have so much mystery around AI, and there's not enough conversations happening that a lot of times the conversations that end up happening while these agents and automations are being built are things like, well, what happens to my job? And how does this change the integrity of my data? And so I find a lot of times what I like to tell folks is we're going to do a crawl, walk, run method. We don't necessarily know where the best AI use cases are. You do, because you own the processes and you know where the data is. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick one use case. We're going to create an objective and a hypothesis, and we are all going to work on trying to solve that use case and measure it so that we have quantifiable and qualitative ROI metrics. And if we all feel really good about this, then we're going to move this from a proof of concept to a pilot project, which just means if this worked for 3 to 4 of you, it'll probably work for your whole entire team. But then we enable their team. And again, if this works in a pilot project capacity, it's going to work for a larger department. So then we scale it out. We create a standardization document of how we did it. There's video tutorials, there's enablement sessions. It's scaled out. While we're doing that and just giving people a way of thinking about experimentation they may have never had, we are also having these conversations around change management, right? If we're automating and the goal is to automate X amount of time, here's where that X amount of time is going to go back to, so that there's no question marks. If anything, it's a lot more intentional on the people than the actual processes, because that's what can make or break automations and agents is the humans, not the data. They run the data.
That's true. Thank you so much. I'm just curious to know how long does it take to implement this process?
I would say to implement the process, 6 months. To make it be a nice, pretty framework, I think I'm still iterating on it, truth be told. So something that I'm really big on is I will always work one deal. So every single deal that we get, we always have an architect, we have a few engineers, we have a project manager. I myself will personally work one deal and build the automations and agents and handle those change management and leadership conversations. because I don't think that what worked yesterday will work tomorrow. And I
Right.
do think that something can always be better. There can always be additional information. There can always be learnings. And so I'm a big proponent of you're never too big for your britches to actually like get down with your team and do some of the scrappy work that it takes. So I don't think that the iteration process is ever going to be over for me. I think, to be honest, the best part about the last year has been working more with the contract that I worked on. I've been working a lot closer with a lot of the folks at that organization. And so it's kind of been like these speed dating rounds, right? Where I get to know people and I'm getting their feedback and what they liked about the automations and what they have questions on. And so this last year I spent a lot more time on the integrity of what's in it for the employee and tying what they're doing to the core competencies and their learning and development initiatives and those conversations with their executive teams on how do you really make this worth their while and like what's the direction that you want to take this in, because if you look around, a lot of organizations aren't doing this right. So the organizations that we're working with, they are already having the maintenance conversations. They're not just trying to build all these agents, they're maintaining them because they're looking at this framework and they're doing the processes and they're taking the time to do the work with me. And that's going to make them more sustainable and has made them more sustainable already. And I can only imagine it's going to get 10 times more better the longer they do it.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. There's something I want to know in terms of your delivery. What is not an example of one problem you've been able to solve for a particular organization and without mentioning any name in terms of what was the problem and when you went in there, look at everything and then you solve this problem and what was the outcome? Don't you have a feel of end to end in terms of what you do?
Great question. It's really hard to pick my favorite. I know you've asked for my favorite. You asked for one, but I always go through like this catalog in my brain. Perhaps one that I really enjoyed recently in the last year that we've done is there is a client of mine who is in the government and space sectors, and they have incredible technology. Truly, it's amazing. But their team is super scrappy, and that's why they have great margins. That's why they are as successful as they are, because it's not 5,000 people running an organization. Their marketing team's like 3 people, so they have a lot more innovation that can happen just naturally having just less people. And so something that was really fun for me in this last year was working with this client to take a lot of the data and the technology insights that their tools were able to create and put that into digestible content and put that onto different platforms and get real-time feedback from prospects on channel performance, audience segments, what they were interested, why were they were interested in it. And we were able to do a lot of fun, creative spin-offs because of that process that we were able to achieve from them, and just getting more insights into a concise formatting in one place so that when their team did meet, they were able to actually action things and create strategies and see it come to life and execute it a lot faster. And so one of the biggest outcomes for them was they have been able to get more clients simply because their technology can predict weather patterns. And so in a lot of the outbound email sequences and paid ads, it was like a personalized experience. So imagine if you were on your LinkedIn and you had a little paid ad that popped up, just see you. And it was like, hey, I see you're in Texas. Get ready for that rain. Here's a blog on 25 things to do in Dallas, Texas on rainy days. And you're like, that's weird. Like LinkedIn usually doesn't show me weather ads. And you can't really do those things fluidly and at that scale unless you've got great technology, great insights, and a competent campaign with metrics. You were able to do things like that. And if you think about like the consumer age that we're in, that's what people want. They want that instant gratification. They want to be able to immediately feel heard and seen, and they will leave whatever platform it is if they don't feel that immediately. And that's what we were able to give their clients. And in turn, we were able to see quite a bit of business coming their way simply because they started having prospects come to them and say, we saw you everywhere and we felt compelled to reach out. And it's like, yeah, that's not a mistake. Like that was the result of implementation in AI and automation. And that's how it's supposed to feel whenever you're marketing. That's the goal, is to put the right message in front of the right people. And when they're ready to buy, you'll be at the top of their mind. And that's what we were able to accomplish.
Oh, wow. Is that a solution you implemented for that particular company?
Yes.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. What do you see your company in the next 12 months?
Where do I see my company in the next 12 months? We have 4x our growth within the last 3 months because of the demands. I see within the next 12 months us being able to hire even more, be in more places as a result, have a lot more in-person events, which I'm super excited about because there's been a huge need for it. Do a lot more expansion in terms of events and education that I haven't been able to see a lot of that I personally crave. So there's no logistics, there's no data. It's just like more of what Ashley wants to see because it makes me feel warm and fuzzy. So we're doing a lot more with college campuses. We're doing some disruptive educational in-person events around shadow days, things that we don't really get the opportunity for and are very much needed because, for example, the shadow days, right? College kids don't necessarily know in-house politics at an organization. They have to deal with it, right? What are we doing? We're not preparing that. So why not have shadow days where we're teaching them and we're holding space for these conversations and like a mentorship type of a relationship, but at scale. So they can come shadow the company for a day. They can ask questions. They're learning how to use AI because we're an AI company. And they're able to, kind of get those newbie jitters and questions out of their system and feel a little bit more confident before they enter the workforce. So like that's something really, really that excites me.
All right, thank you so much. I mean, in terms of client, do you want more client? What are you doing to get more client or in satisfy you what you have? Maybe share some strategies on getting client also.
Okay, so in terms of getting clients, my full emphasis for this year is actually on the academy portion. So it's the AI Impact Alignment, it's the 3-month builder program. A lot of my resources, a lot of my time and energy are going more towards that because the Alliance, which is the consulting sister company, we are happy. You're stocked up on clients. We love our clients. We have 9-month contracts, and I'll tell you right now, every single one of our clients is renewed at least twice. So we have a consistent pipeline when it comes to the consulting. Now we're very much trying to bring up the rest of the organizations out there that want to enable their workforce on how to build and maintain these solutions. And so I kind of look at this as like a balance game of last year is very heavily focused on the consulting opportunities and now maintaining those agents and automations for them and making them better and iterating on them while also bringing in more of these expedited learning modules and frameworks for different organizations.
Thank you so much. What keeps you up at night?
Oh my gosh, so many things. When it comes for AI or in general, which one?
Anyone you want to share?
So what keeps me up at night is the job is never done. There's always more. Being a perfectionist has definitely taken its toll on me being a founder to 2 companies and being in startup mode. So I think what keeps me up at night is more so there's never an end, right? When you work for someone else, you can almost kind of close the computer at the end of the day and say like, okay, I'll get back to that list tomorrow. And when it's your business, that doesn't feel as good to like close the laptop and just say like, I'll come back to it tomorrow. But it's something that I've had to force myself to get into this habit of and create strategies and use tools and find my people to kind of help me recreate that narrative of you have to take breaks. And so I think that that's probably in general what keeps me up at night is not being in a consistent practice to take the break. And I'm learning how to, and I don't like it. If I'm being honest, I don't like it. I don't want to take the break, but I know it's necessary for a sustainable founder and for my mental health. So that's what keeps me up at night in general.
Okay. It seems you're almost good. So the next question is, if you take 6 months sabbatical leave, CB, what would happen to your company? Keep it growing or plateau?
No, it would absolutely keep growing. Absolutely believe it would keep growing. Honestly, if I took a 6-month sabbatical, I'm sure that if anything, we would probably make more money because I wasn't there. I think so often simply removing myself from the room, and I think it goes for everybody, right? Removing myself from the room so that people can feel more free to make mistakes and have those crappy ideas like we all have them. It would probably, I don't know if it would, double the business, but I definitely don't think it would hurt it if I stepped away. I just think it's more of a mental muscle for me to learn to get into that type of a mentality.
I challenge you. Take it tomorrow. I'm just kidding. I know it's really nice to hear business owners confident that they are replaceable. I think that's one of the things, even for us, that we try to, let business owners know that do not let your business be in your head. Because if your business is in your head, it's what you don't do. Anything could happen and you're not there. The value of your business, if you want to sell it, is not there because if you want to sell it tomorrow, but you have to sit down with somebody that is buying it for 6 months, 9 months to show them, to tell them exactly what you do. And that is not what anyone likes. If you want to do that thing you don't like to do, just do it one more time. And that will be the last time you ever do it. and everything is there for them to see. And I think it's very important for business owner. And I love to ask, and sometimes I think I remember I asked a lady who will be feeling, she opened my mouth like, no, that's a no-go area because she cannot stop away from the business for one day. That again is a perspective for her to start thinking, okay, how can I make myself replaceable so that anytime, any day, if I'm not there, the business will continue to run. But thank you so much for sharing your perspective. Okay, if you're sitting in front of any business owner, no matter what kind of business, what piece of advice will you be giving them?
I would say, well, I don't know if I would give them any advice because I don't think that I have all the answers, and everyone's kind of on their own journey building the plane as they're flying it. So I don't necessarily think that I would have advice. I would more so just say you really have two options. You can either do it all on your own, or you can get really honest with yourself about what you need to do in order to delegate and feel comfortable delegating in order to focus on the strategy and the relationships, because that's really the growth in any business is the founder networking and hearing different strategies and just being out there in general. So I think that's my only piece of advice, if you will, would just be, how did you start this business? And what were the parts of starting the business that you liked? And are you still doing those? Because if you're not, you're going to burn out. And no business should be run by a founder that loses passion. It's not good for the culture. It's not good for the brand. It's not good for the clients. It's not good for the product. So that's what I would say.
All right, thank you so much. Well said. Where can our listener connect with you, learn more about AI Workforce Alliance, and potentially work with you? What's the best way for them to actually reach out to you?
LinkedIn. Everything is on my LinkedIn. I have curated it so that there's a little bit of something for everyone on there. That is the place to find me.
All right, thank you so much, Ashley. This has been an incredible, insightful conversation. And to our listener, I think they will gain a lot of insight from what you've shared today. And I want to thank you for coming through. Personally, I've learned a lot. We'll catch up on other things thereafter. But I mean, we can only wish you well in your future endeavor. And we definitely call you another time to come and share, especially in the training side of things, how people can also take advantage of your training, and how that could definitely impact their career and what they do. But thank you so much for coming through.
You didn't quit your day job to become a full-time admin assistant. The Intelligence Forge podcast is sponsored by Permasize AI Forge. At Permasize AI Forge, we know you didn't start your business to spend 60 hours a week on paperwork, chasing leads, and managing endless admin tasks. You started it to build something meaningful and serve your clients. But right now, you're trapped in the day-to-day grind instead of growing your business. What if I told you our clients are reclaiming 15, 20 hours per week, increasing their revenue by 30 to 50% within 6, 12 months, and finally getting their lives back? We don't just automate random tasks. We build custom AI systems that eliminate the bottlenecks choking your growth, from leads generation to lead, nurturing and management to project management to client follow-ups. Stop paying for an expensive, frustrating manual system. It's time to upgrade to strategic automation. Visit PermasizeAIForge.com and book your free business transformation strategy call today. Discover exactly how much time and money you're losing to manual processes and how to get both back. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Intelligence Forge, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode packed with game-changing insights. Your future automated business is waiting.